Hey Zay, what's going on? Rob and Taran from RHAP. Sad to see you end up going out of the game. What went wrong for you, do you feel like, in this first week?
Yeah, I think I waited a little bit too long to start making those relationships and, start talking game and making sure I had the votes on my side. And then obviously I didn't, complete the challenges. I didn't execute like I knew I needed to. And, if you're on the block week one and people consider you a threat, you're probably going to go home.
Yeah, we saw that a big part of the reason why some people were mentioning voting you out was like, we might never get this chance again. Like he happens to be on the block. And of course, that stemmed from that whole accomplice thing. Why was it, do you think, that people were looking at you as a potential accomplice?
Honestly, I went into the house. I'm pretty like lighthearted and chill about everything. And so when they were asking me if I was the accomplice, like they asked me directly, and I was like, I don't know, maybe like kind of as a joke. I didn't think people would take it seriously because like obviously if I'm the accomplice, I'm not gonna say like I'm the accomplice. And so people were like, oh, he just said he was the accomplice. Like everyone vote for him. And it was like I was like, what? Like, are these people serious? And then I got some votes, and so I didn't really care that much because I knew that it wasn't gonna affect my game super long term. Because I wasn't gonna get evicted, because I knew I wasn't the accomplice.
Okay. Zay, we saw you get into it with a Big Brother legend, Rachel Reilly, over these last couple of days. Can you give us your feelings about Rachel now, having spent a couple of days with her in the house?
Yeah, honestly, my least favorite person in the house, if I'm being honest, was Rachel. We did kind of butt heads a little bit. I thought that our interaction, our kind of like little fight or whatever you want to call it, was pretty ridiculous. Honestly, I'm not one that likes beef. I don't like to argue with people.
Right,
I'm
to
very
eat
level
beef.
headed. But I eat beef. I love eating anything you put in front of me, especially beef. But I don't like arguing. I don't like conflict. And so I was trying to diffuse the situation. I was trying to explain to her. She kept on playing a victim mentality, saying, "You're targeting me. You're targeting me." And I was saying, "No, Rachel, but don't you think it makes the most sense for my game if I did win HOH, that I would put up people that voted to evict me the week before? Like, I'm not targeting you, but you would be in the pool of people." And then, she kept on saying, "Oh, but you're targeting me." And she kept on having these little lines like, "You mess with the queen, you're gonna get beheaded," all this stuff, which obviously I did. She was right, I guess. But I don't like altercation like that. And then when I try to sit down and talk to her like an adult, after her calling me a child and all this stuff, she was one to say, she was saying, "I'm bored. I'm bored. I don't want to talk about this. I'm bored." I'm like, "You are literally the one acting like a child." And so it was a very childish interaction. I've never had an interaction like that in my life with an adult. And so it was a little bit, sad to see, Big Brother legend act in that way. But sometimes it's just what happens, and I'm sure it was good entertainment for everybody. But I obviously, that's not the way I want to be portrayed. Is that I'm somebody who is into conflict or into fighting, because that's not who I am, and I don't like it. And I was trying to diffuse it, but obviously I wasn't able to.
Yeah, it does seem like, I think there are a lot of people in the house that probably didn't really watch Rachel's seasons all that much. It does seem like there's a perception of Rachel in the house that she's kind of like a really like strategically oriented player, but she's kind of famous for getting into fights like this. So it's kind of funny to see this sort of image of Rachel as like this very scary strategic player when listen, Rachel Reilly, we love her, but she is messy. That was always that was always Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she has to have some sort of strategy, right? If she's won the game in the past. But I think that people didn't know who she was, and everyone was scared of her. And I was one of the only ones in that house that wasn't scared of her. I wanted to take shots at her. I wanted to make her look like more of a threat than I was, and I was willing to take those shots when I had the chance. And so, it was kind of sad to see that everyone was so scared of her that they didn't want to vote against her because, obviously, if that's the mentality that they carry through this game, then no one's going to take shots at her, and she's going to walk her way to the end. And so someone has to step up and say, I'm going to take out Rachel and be willing to put stuff on the line. But obviously, in that game, in that season, she hadn't really done too much to, prove that she was a threat. It was just because she won in the past, and because she'd been on the show, people automatically viewed her as a threat.
Yeah, I thought you had a pretty good speech, or at least idea for a speech, with telling people like, "Hey, Amy is just another vote for Rachel. Like, leave me in here. I'll go after Rachel." Did you feel like that you were getting traction with that when you were in the house?
That's what I was going for. I obviously I think if they looked at me as somewhat of a threat on week one, and they want to take me out when they have the chance. But my goal was, because they were looking at me as a threat, why not take a little bit of the pressure off me, put it more on Rachel, and say, "Hey, who's the bigger threat here? All of you guys are saying you're scared of her. I'll take her out, even if it ends my game. I'm willing to put my game on the line to take her out, because I felt like that was my only fighting chance of maybe people will realize, hey, maybe if we keep this guy in the game for a few weeks, he can get out Rachel, and then we can take him out." And that was kind of my goal, is like, let's talk about the real threats here. I'm not a real threat. I lost all my challenges, or my competitions. I lost all of them, so obviously I'm not that good. But But here I am on the block. It obviously didn't work. People still wanted to keep in Rachel. Hopefully they deal with her later. We'll kind of see how they operate that. But that was kind of my plan going into it.
Yeah, so from my perspective, there were a few key players that seemed very adamant about the vote and were perhaps part of the reason why you weren't able to get the traction you needed. Ava was one of them. She seemed very adamant, and even when she was pulled into some alliances with Vince and Zach, they were trying to get her to keep you, and she was just like, that seems silly to me. Morgan was definitely one of them. She was very worried about you as a chess player. Mickey was one of them as well, who was pretty good at wrangling some of the people who were straying. Ashley was considering keeping you at one point. Mickey was good at kind of keeping her in line. How do you feel about those three players? Do you feel like there's something you could have done to maybe sway some of them?
The three were Mickey, Ashley, and Morgan.
Mickey, Morgan, and Ava.
Oh, Ava, yeah. Mickey, Morgan, Ava. Yeah, so I think with Ava, she's a complete wild card. I think it's not going to play to her benefit. I think people, when they see that and the game goes on, they're going to get rid of her because they don't know what to predict with her. At one point, she literally said, I'm going to base my vote off of who gives the better speech. And so just in case she was still thinking that, I wanted to have a great speech prepared. But that was part of the speech. But I do think that she was scared. The girls all came to me and they said they're scared to vote against the girls. It was kind of turning to this gender thing, which is not how I want it to be, especially since the guys were outnumbered. And so I didn't want it to turn to a gender thing. I wanted it to turn into, hey, let's get out Rachel since all you guys think she's a threat. Let's play into that. Let's make her a threat and let's get her out. So that's my take on with Ava. With Morgan, I think she's very strategic and she's very smart. And so, I think with players like that, when they see somebody else who, is also strategic and smart and they can read that, and I think we both read that on each other, she's somebody I would either really like to work with in the game long term, or she saw it as an opportunity to get me out, and I don't blame her for that. I think it might have been better for her game. And Mickey as well. I think that she was on the line for a minute, and I was almost had her convinced at one point, but I think it was hard because she was closer to the other side of the house, just on a personal level and on a game level. And again, if you're a threat player sitting on the block week one, you're probably going to go home.
We saw Zach have a very big reaction to you going home last night. Can you just talk a little bit about your relationship with Zach and how he's doing?
I would say out of anyone in the house, Zach and I were the two closest in the house. I love Zach. He's an amazing guy in every way, and I think very highly of him. And I think he thought the same about me. And so, I think that the house will change a lot, especially for Zach, now that I'm gone, because that was a relationship that really he didn't have with anybody else. And we had a little bit of a bromance, we were super tight. And so I think on a personal level and a game level, it hurt him a lot. Because I think people might go after him now that I'm gone, because now he's, obviously very athletic, he's smart, he's the triple threat that, and we were very closely aligned. And so I think he's a threat in that way. So I think it hurts his game a lot that I go, but also on a personal level, we related the most in the house. We were super tight. He's somebody that I plan on being friends with my whole life. Even though I've only known him for, a week and a half. And so I think on a personal level, he doesn't want to see me go because, obviously it's going to be harder in the house to not have his boy there.
If we were part of the burger, what parts of the burger would we be?
I would say, like, if you guys were parts of the burger, I don't know you guys well enough yet to make the final call. Yeah. But just off of first vibe, I'm trying to think of what other parts I'd already used. Maybe one of you guys could be the tomato. I don't know. I like tomato.
Yeah. Okay.
But some people don't like tomato. So do you guys feel like you're like that? Do some people not like you, or does everyone like you guys?
Some people don't like us.
Okay, maybe tomato. Maybe the tomato.
Okay. All right. We have a mutual friend in Sammy. And
I love Sammy. One of my best friends.
I know. Well, he took some responsibility. He thought that maybe this was his fault, that he didn't tell you to watch the show in preparing to go to Big Brother. Is this all Sammy's fault?
Not at all. Sammy could do no wrong. No, honestly, it was honestly more on me. I obviously I should have watched the show a little bit more, but I don't think it would have had a huge difference in effect. I think that the strategy that I had going into the show, I couldn't have strategized before the show. I don't think watching the show would have helped me strategize, because every season is so different. There are different house guests with different personalities. And so I think that you just kind of got to come up with a strategy while you're in the house. And just the way the cards played, I wasn't as tight with Vince at the beginning. He put me up for a nomination. I lost my competitions. I'm on the block. I go home. And so I think it's how it played out. I think there are very many different scenarios, or maybe alternate universes, and where I do stay. If I would have gotten protection as one of the have-nots week one, that was something I wanted. It didn't work out. If somebody else would have been HOH, I don't think I would have been nominated. There's so many different ways. If I would have won a competition, then I wouldn't have been on there. So there's so many different ways that and I think it would have affected the whole season.
Yeah.
But you know, the way that the way my fate was is, you know, I get out week 1, and it's something I'm willing to live with. But in no way do I think it's Sammy's fault at all.
Okay. Well, Zae, I know you got to run. Thanks for making some time to talk to us. All the best outside of Big Brother, and we'll see you around. Okay.
Awesome, appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Have a good one.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.